by an acute water shortage will start having regular water supply from Thursday. Dauda visited a plant on Wednesday night to assess the extent of repair works on a best pipeline, which is the main transmission line to the Wager water plant. The fault has resulted in an acute water shortage in parts of Accra. Alhaji Collins Dauda is Minister of Water Resources, Works and Housing. He's joined us over the telephone. Hello, Alhaji.
Yes, madam.
We understand that indeed works on the pipeline is complete. What assurance can you give us now that indeed we would have water soon?
Yeah, yesterday when I visited the site where there's this effect with the pressmen, we all saw what was going on, and which explains why some parts of Accra did not have water running at all. Yesterday, the briefing we had from the technical team indicated that water will begin flowing today. And true to the assurance they gave us this morning, a few minutes after 6 a.m., Ghana Water Company started pumping water from Wager to serve the people of Accra. So as I speak now, water is flowing. We are able to pump water. It will take some number of hours for the situation to stabilize, but we can assure the public that work on that particular drain is completed, and therefore pumping of water has resumed. And so there shouldn't be any cause for alarm.
I see. Thank you very much, Alhaji. Alhaji Collins Dauda is Minister for Water Resources, Works and Housing. Let's move on to some other stories. And the International Service for the Acquisition of Agri-Biotech Applications is urging those waging war against the introduction of genetically modified organisms to reconsider their positions. Speaking at the 2014 meeting of the American Association for the Advancement of Science in Chicago, the director of the Africa office, Dr. Margaret Karimbu, cited strides by some countries in Africa to buttress her point. Sudan and Burkina Faso, according to her, have seen a sharp increase in the cultivation of cotton in the last few years by adopting the technology.
Speaking to Joy News at the 2014 meeting of the American Association for the Advancement of Science in Chicago, the director of the Africa office of the ISA, Dr. Margaret Karimbu, indicated the future of GMOs in Africa looks promising. Though the GM technology continues to face stiff opposition on the continent, the report suggests confined field trials in Cameroon, Egypt, Ghana, Kenya, Malawi, Nigeria and Uganda show remarkable progress prior to approval for commercialization. These 7 countries have been testing various GM crops ranging from wilt disease-resistant banana, nitrogen-efficient rice to pest-resistant cowpea. Dr. Margaret Karimbu said improving these crops is necessary to ensure food security. She indicated allegations that adoption of GMOs will allow multinational companies to take over Africa's seed market to the detriment of smallholder rural farmers were unfounded. The Water Efficient Maize for Africa project, according to Dr. Karimbu, is on track to deliver the first GM drought-tolerant maize in 2017. The report, however, cites the non-availability of science-based regulatory systems as a major hindrance to adoption of GM crops on the continent. So far, South Africa, Burkina Faso and Sudan remain the only countries that have commercialized GM crops in Africa.
South Africa grew biotech cotton, maize and soybean in a combined acreage of 2.85 million hectares. Burkina Faso had the second largest area under biotech crops in the continent. The country grew a total of 474,000 hectares. This is a sharp increase from the first initial acreage of 8,500 hectares in 2008 when the first commercial crop was grown in the country. Sudan grew 61,000 hectares, up from the 20,000 hectares that the country grew during its first year of commercialization in 2012. This is a threefold increase in adoption of biotech cotton.
As of 2013, over 175 million hectares of GM crops have been grown by 27 countries globally, according to the report. 19 developing countries have produced 54%, while 8 industrial countries grew 46%. Adelaide Arthur's report.
Immigration Service says it will intensify patrols along Ghana's eastern border post in the coming days. The border post at Aplau is the main entry point between Ghana and Togo, receiving thousands of daily visitors who commute to transact business between the two countries. Sector Commander Aplau, Ghana Immigration Service COI Julius Bogla spoke with my colleague Niakrofi Smatabe.
Well, let's start with movement across the border, at least at the start of 2014. We're in February now. How has movement across the border been?
Movement across the border had been normal like it used to be the previous year. There had not been any much difference. I would say that so far it's very normal, like we used to have on an average of 1,500 that cross on normal basis, daily basis here, so it is.
Because we've heard countless times about the fact that there are some unapproved routes that people use to enter either Togo or Ghana. Do we still have those places open?
Yeah, we have unapproved routes along the border, but they have not been secured in a manner to allow official movement. So I wouldn't say it's open or closed. It's not opened.
But people use it.
Yeah, people don't really use it. That's why we are there to prevent. In between this border, the main border, and what I call the Bit9 border, we have an intervals which we call bits at let's say about 100-meter interval.
Okay.
Yeah, and this line has been secured with a fence. You understand me? And sometimes they try to go through the fence. So we have our border patrol team along this line who prevent people from accessing that place to enter Togo. And then after that bit, we have what we call pillars. That area is not demarcated. The demarcation is not very clear. Though we have our pillars that shows the demarcation line. What I mean by it has not been clearly demarcated means that the kind of residence that we have there, the buildings are not well marked, so you can't do. Yes, so we equally have those places that we call pillars from 1 to 14. And these are supposed to be footpaths that have been in existence for a long period of time. And then the people still, those border residents still try to use those places. And actually, the way the terrain is, we will sometimes have to profile these people. This border, you have to understand this sometimes and allow those who are actually resident to use those places.
President John Mahama has come under fire for Facebooking. Chairman of the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament and Member of Parliament for Doma Central, Kweku Agyeman, is asking him to stop Facebooking and concentrate on governing the country. Marion Tere has been analyzing the president's social media presence in the light of the criticism.
President Mahama's last post on Twitter was on January 22nd, almost a month ago, with other posts on 18th, 15th, 12th and 10th of January 2014. This showing a trend of someone who posts just what he deems important. A look at his official Facebook account with a following of over 32,000 fans shows a different trend. His last post on the page is as recent as February 18th. The video has the caption, "Ghana is the most stable country in West Africa. This is our most valuable asset when talking to potential foreign investors. Watch and please share." There are several other posts from 14th, 13th, 12th and 11th February, and the controversial post of February 10th, the first part of which reads, "I thank and salute the wise Ghanaian politicians who understand that the right attitude in such times is to assist the government and stop predicting disaster." This, Mr. Emmanuel reacted to by saying, and I quote, "President himself shouldn't be doing this kind of propaganda politics," adding, "The president should allow that to be done by the younger guys. I don't want to mention names, but you all know them." Perhaps Mr. Emmanuel is not just bothered about the president's presence on social media, but also his choice of posts. This shows a trend of a president who wants to keep his citizens updated about the work he is doing on their behalf. The president also keeps a blog with the last post on February 11th with links to his YouTube and Google Plus accounts and a volunteering page which seeks to engage Ghanaians. Well, there are many young Ghanaians across the globe who might disagree with the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament and rather praise the president for his presence on social media. Marian Toure for Joy News, Accra.
The Ghana Grid Company Limited is warning of a worsening power supply to electricity consumers. The ongoing load shedding is set to get worse because of an emergency shutdown of another generator at the Volta River Authority's thermal power plant at Abuaza. Gridco's announcement comes 24 hours after Deputy Energy Minister John Jinapo declared that the ongoing load shedding will end by midday Tuesday. Gridco in a statement indicated the non-availability of this additional generator has worsened the power supply deficit, hence will require Gridco to manage the load carefully to avoid total shutdown of the system, adding that this may result in some power curtailment during peak periods until the VRA generator is restored to service. You're watching News Today. I'll be back with more. Don't go away. I'm glad you could stay on News Today. Now, discussants at a policy forum organized by the Institute of Economic Affairs went home disgruntled and very disappointed at the turn of events following the failure to arrive at a consensus on the cedi crisis, its implications on the way forward forum, which was intended originally to provide solutions to redeem the Ghana cedi from further depreciation. And this was unfortunately reduced to another political blame and defend game when representatives of the two major parties, NDC and NPP, took turns to blame and defend their political positions. Former Minister of State at the Finance Ministry, Dr. Akotose, represented the opposition, while Fifi Kwete, Minister of State for Finance and Allied Services, spoke on behalf of government.
The expectations of participants at the forum were high, knowing they will go home with concrete solutions on how to save the Ghana cedi from further depreciation. But to their dismay, the two main speakers at the forum spent greater part of the 3-hour discussion time to blame, defend, attack and counter-attack each other's stance on the issue at stake.
Long-term fundamental causes of the currency crisis in Ghana relates principally to an imbalance between our production and consumption patterns. That is fundamental. Simply put, we do not produce most of what we consume. Consequently, to satisfy our consumption needs, we must necessarily import to fill the gap. Importation, however, requires that we have sufficient foreign exchange. But since we all know we do not generate enough foreign exchange, there will always be pressure on our currency.
It is the domestic debt. 55%, pushing towards 60% of our debt stock today is domestic rather than external. And it's not just that it's domestic, but it's also because it's far more expensive. If you are borrowing on in dollar terms at a rate of about, let's say, 8%, 8.5%, it's expensive. But if you are borrowing in cedi terms, you have to be, paying in the region of about 23, 24%. It's far, far, far more expensive.
Among the discussants were the PPP's 2012 running mate, Ms. Eva Loko, and the national chairman of the PNC, Ahmed Ramadan, who did not take kindly to the turn of events.
We have not yet gathered enough information as to the way forward. And I'm very, very sad because this thing is going to end very soon. for instance, what are the solutions? I've heard the challenges. Some of it have indicated, for example, that Ghanaians should do better, they should do more. But who is helping Ghanaians to do what? Our educational system is in shambles.
When I received the invitation to this forum, and looking at the topic, I said to myself, if it's going to be Mr. Hosea Akutose and Fifi Beto, we are certainly going to find a delivery from each one of them who will just be guiding their individual terms. And it is certainly not going to satisfy the requirements of the topic, implications and way forward. And exactly this is what we heard from them.
The board chair of IEA, Dr. Charles Mensah, was unhappy that the concept of the forum was defeated. He is hopeful, however, that the IEA would provide another platform for finding solutions to the current economic crisis.
Because the Bank of Ghana measures would not solve the fundamental problem. You know, we have huge budget deficits, we have huge debts, we have huge foreign debts as well as domestic debts, and these things would all add up to and cause the depreciation to continue going on. This is not new. It's been going on since 1961. So obviously we're not solving the fundamental or the underlying causes, and that's what we need to work towards. I think we'll create another forum to see if we can solicit ideas on that.
Meanwhile, the Bank of Ghana is hopeful the cedi will start stabilizing against the United States dollar from March 2014. The Ghana cedi has depreciated by about 8% against the US dollar from January 2014. And according to the Bank of Ghana, recent measures is introduced to mitigate the depreciating cedi will only show results soon. And the central bank is confident strong indications of an appreciating cedi will be experienced by third quarter of 2014. Head of Financial Stability, Dr. Benjamin Amwa at the Bank of Ghana, however, says the measures will not singularly stop the cedi's free fall in the long term. Management of Intercity STC Company Limited is still crying for recapitalization of the company so it can compete effectively in the sector. As new head of operations, Victor Ananefrempong has told Joy News the company is currently running with only 20 buses, 80 short of the minimum it requires to operate profitably. This, it says, requires huge capital injection.
The woes of the once vibrant Intercity STC Company Limited seem unending in spite of several calls to overhaul and bring it back to its feet. The company has a fleet of 39 buses, but only 20 are roadworthy. The remaining are all faulty. Plying routes such as Tamale, Aflao, Abidjan, Cotonou, among others, the company requires between 50 to 100 buses to operate at its optimum. But that requires huge sums of money which the company cannot boast of now.
The government can give STC the last chance, all right, and give us a fleet, minimum about 50 Scania, which is our choice. And I can assure you that we would, based upon performance agreements, they give you a performance contract. 2 years, you perform. If you don't perform, you go. We also will sign additional performance with that. So if you achieve a target, because you need buses to run. You are the manager of so-and-so, so you need, how many buses you need? I give you these buses. I'm giving you a target. If you are unable to achieve it, I'm giving you first quarter, second quarter. If you are unable to deal with it, you're off.
The Intercity STC company, after halting its operations on the Kumasi-Accra route, worsened its debt stock, losing its viability. For the new head of operations of the company, Victor Ananefrempong, STC's current plight is as a result of its initial non-profit making objective.
You see, STC has a lot of debts in the past because it was being run not with the aim of making for profit. Fuel, they were not paying. Buses, they would just run them and it gets spoiled. With the hope government will bring, like Metromas. But those type of transport trends cannot be sustained. So now the government cannot continue to do that. We must run transport with the aim of generating revenue to pay ourselves and to buy more. I think that one of the cardinal or one of the critical issues that continues to run STC inefficiently is because STC must break away from running all routes without regard to how profitable is the route is. For me, that is one of the cardinal issues. And that is what I would want to ensure, that when we have fleets, that will be our primary objective.
He also agrees with arguments that the operational turf war between the company's shareholders, SSNIT, and government over its management and control also played a role. Vanef, a private entity who took over the company some time back, according to Victor Ananifempong, had good management principles, including a stringent performance monitoring system, which he intends to reintroduce to avoid any case of mismanagement. Abigail Adomakwenchi for Joy News.
Meanwhile, SSNIT says it is not satisfied with the operations of the Intercity STC Company Limited and is therefore planning to reduce its shares to 26% from 80%. Head of Corporate Affairs Evangeline Amagashi told Joy News SSNIT is only awaiting government's approval to sell its stake in Intercity STC.
SSNIT says the move forms part of the current restructuring in the investment portfolios.
Unfortunately, we are not too satisfied with both the financial and managerial aspect of ISTC. That is why we sought the Board of Trustees of SSNIT's approval to reduce our equity shares from 80% to about 26%. Our government is maintaining its 20% shares. If we decide to leave entirely, it might not be too good. But because we have to invest the money though, because already for social security, always we have to invest, divest. Social security investment is very dynamic. We can't stay static. When it's not good here, we have to make sure wherever we are going, the yield is good, it's liquidity, it's all there. Whenever we want to call for our money, we can always get it.
She added that SSNIT continued to offset the debts of the Intercity STC company and has so far paid 25.58 million cedis of STC's debt, which stood at 45 million cedis as of October 2012.
So far, we have sunk about 41.63 million Ghana cedis in STC. 2001, we paid 5.89 million Ghana cedis. Then in March 2012, we paid 1.449 million Ghana cedis to settle 50% pre-incorporation expenses. Then we also paid 8.709 million Ghana cedis later to settle the SSNIT debt. We have paid 3 tranches of money to them, and we cannot continue to be putting money somewhere that we are not, no dividends has been received. So we cannot continue to do that, because we have to make sure that we invest properly and make sure we get our money's worth to pay the pensions.
She added that the decision would soon be reached on the timelines to bring in a strategic investor after evaluation of the company, and therefore asked officials of the Intercity STC company to cooperate with them. Abigail Adomakwenchi for Joy News.
Government of Ghana is seeking a public-private partnership with the World Bank to get the country a flag carrier. Minister of Transport Jifar Tibo, however, could not give any definite timelines as to when negotiations on the deal would end, but was hopeful of a deal that would make the airline a force to reckon with.
At the launch of the first African Air Expo Fair in Accra, Transport Minister Jifa Ativo said consultations with the World Bank to get the country a national airline started as far back as last year.
The national carrier, we are going through a process. Because it's a PPP, we are channeling through the Ministry of Finance. We advertised last year, as you recollect, and we received some proposals which were evaluated. This was submitted to World Bank for no objection, which they have granted. We are expecting the final no objection from the World Bank for the engagement of the transnational advisor, so it's ongoing.
Meanwhile, the first African Air Expo Fair to be held in October this year is expected to attract investments estimated at over $1 billion in the continent and also boost the West African sub-region's aviation industry.
The show will provide a fruitful forum from which stakeholders can interact, especially with prospective investors in the achievement of government policy of public-private partnership in the development of our aviation infrastructure and services. It will also ensure that stakeholders are in tune with the dynamics of the industry, where they can share their experiences, findings, and new investments, among others. The objective of this event, among others, in hosting this event is to create the awareness within Africa and the global aviation that investment in Ghana, in whatever form, will be of great benefit to Ghana as well as the investor.
The fair is in consultation with the International Center for Excellence of Abu Dhabi, who has been the domain of aviation human capital development in the Middle East for over 5 years now. Major international airlines, including Lufthansa, British Airways, Air Namibia, Emirates Airlines and Delta Airlines, are expected to participate in the fair. Funding for the fair, according to Transport Minister Jifa Ativo, will be sourced from the private sector and not from government coffers. It will cost an estimated $3 million to host the first African Air Expo Fair in the country, and Ghana is expected to pay $1 million as its contribution to the program, whilst the Abu Dhabi Center for Excellence handles the rest of the money.
Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan has suspended Central Bank Governor Lamidi Sanusi after his accusations of missing oil revenue sparked a public outcry and criticism against the government. Jonathan's spokesman Reuben Abati said in an emailed statement Sanusi, 52, was suspended for alleged various acts of financial recklessness and misconduct. Sanusi spoke with CNBC's Power Lunch a few minutes ago. We'll bring you a playback.
Legal is there's the legal question of whether the president, who does not have the authority to remove the central bank, suspend the governor, and whether suspension is not removal. But you know, I'm not interested. I've always said it. I was invited to serve the country. If the government, at any point in time, the government asks, says it feels it's time to go, I'll go. I will. I don't know what to do. I think in terms of the institutions, it should be helpful to establish the principle by courts, and I think that's what we do. Even if I challenged it, I'm not going back to the job. Even if I successfully, I will not go back. But I think it would be in the interest of the institution for the court to once and for all if the president has the power to do this. The reason is that if it is not challenged, then from now, the next central bank governor cannot be independent, fear of it being suspended by politicians. So I do plan to have the court confirm if indeed that authority exists, and I will challenge it. Given my legacy is what it is as of the time I leave office today. The legacy of low inflation, stable exchange rates, of a reformed and well-governed banking system, of robust reserves. It's a legacy of an independent central bank. It's a legacy of financial inclusion, net systems reform, and so on. So, I mean, history will record this. Nothing is going to change that.
In tech business, Facebook has bought messaging app WhatsApp in a deal worth a total of $19 billion, about £11.4 billion in cash and shares. It is the social networking giant's biggest acquisition to date. In a statement announcing the deal, Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg described WhatsApp services as incredibly valuable. WhatsApp has more than 450 million monthly users and is popular with people looking to avoid text messaging charges. WhatsApp allows users to send messages over internet connections, avoiding text messaging fees, and the company claims it is currently registering 1 million new users a day. Japan's monthly trade deficit has more than doubled to a new record after a weakened currency drove up the cost of fuel imports while exports slowed. Japan's trade gap rose by 71% to 2.79 trillion yen, about $27.3 billion in January, from a deficit of 1.3 trillion yen in December. This comes after imports rose by 25%, outweighing a 9.5% rise in exports. Japan has posted large trade deficits for 19 straight months, raising concerns the government's stimulus policy may be having a counter effect. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has been looking to weaken the value of Japanese currency to stimulate economic growth and end nearly 2 decades of deflation. His measures, which have come to be known as Abenomics, include increasing money supply in the country to drive down the value of the currency. That's it for business, but Baba Tando brings us sports news after this.
Baba Tando. Now, FIFA referee chief has defended official Jonas Eriksson after he was accused by Manchester City boss Manuel Pellegrini of favoring Barcelona. Eriksson awarded the penalty against City and sent off Martin Demichelis as they lost 2-1 in the Champions League last 16 tie. First leg. The Chilean also said Eriksson lacked experience because he was from Sweden. Eriksson, 39, has been selected by FIFA for the World Cup in Brazil this summer. Two second-half goals from Toni Kroos and Thomas Müller ensured UEFA Champions League holders Bayern Munich defeated Arsenal 2-0 at the Emirates Stadium. The win ensured that Pep Guardiola's side remain on course in their bid to become the first side to retain the Champions League title, as it gave them an emphatic advantage in their last 16 first-leg ties. Now, Diego Costa's late header defeated AC Milan and put Atletico Madrid on course for a first championship or Champions League quarter-final bet since 1997. There's UEFA Europa Champions League action tonight, and would focus on the Ghanaian players who will be doing action for their respective clubs, and that will be on the updates on the AM show tomorrow morning. Meanwhile, sports is done for now. It's proudly sponsored by Tigo and Cowbell. My name is Baba Tando. Good afternoon.
News from elsewhere on News Today. The spokesman for South Sudan's military has denied reports that government troops have lost Malakal after contact with officers was lost due to network problems. Colonel Philip Agia also denied reports that the Sudan People's Liberation Army plans to attack Pariang, a village close to Sudan border, believed to be one of the hideouts of Mashar. Both the government and the rebels accuse each other of violating the cessation of hostilities agreement signed between the two groups at peace negotiations in Ethiopia. News reports say the SPLA attacked the rebels in Leah, the birthplace of Riek Machar, 2 days after the ceasefire was signed in neighboring Ethiopia. Meanwhile, Ugandan Foreign Minister Sam Kutisa says troops from the Ugandan People Defense Force currently fighting rebels in neighboring South Sudan will be withdrawn beginning in April. South Sudan's violence has so far left thousands dead and hundreds of thousands displaced from their homes. Uganda opposition groups have criticized the government for the troop deployment, saying they have turned UPDF troops into mercenaries. UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Navi Pillay says deadly sectarian violence in the Central African Republic appears to be getting worse. The Central African Republic descended into chaos after mainly Muslim Seleka rebels overthrew the president last March and went on a nationwide rampage of killing and looting. Navi Pillay said most of the ongoing abuses are being committed by anti-Balaka militia, who she said are deliberately targeting the Muslim population of the capital Bangui. She also noted that some groups of ex-Seleka rebels are also targeting Christian civilians in the capital. And a UN spokesman said Pillay has warned leaders in the CAR to take steps to stop the violence. Pillay has called for every effort to be made to restore security, rule of law and ensure accountability. U.S. President Barack Obama has called on Ukraine's armed forces to stay out of the country's political crisis and warned that there would be consequences for those who step over the line. Using his toughest language so far in response to a Ukrainian conflict that has strong threats of U.S. and European Union sanctions, Obama denounced the violence and puts the onus on Ukraine's government to reach a peaceful resolution. Meanwhile, at least 17 protesters have been killed in renewed clashes with police in central Kiev after a truce agreed on Wednesday broke down. Witnesses reported live rounds, petrol bombs and water cannon at the main protest site, Independence Square. A meeting between EU foreign ministers and President Viktor Yanukovych is now underway. Officials say contradicting earlier reports that the minister had flown out without seeing him. Well, President Barack Obama and the leaders of Mexico and Canada have wrapped up a one-day North American summit on a range of issues including economic competitiveness, border security and climate change. A joint statement outlined agreements on steps to enhance investment and tourism, reduce regulations and strengthen bilateral border initiatives. The leaders agreed to expand cooperation on limiting greenhouse gas emissions and step up efforts against human trafficking as well as regional crime. European Union Foreign Policy Chief Catherine Ashton announced the next round of talks on Iran's nuclear program will be held March 17. Ashton said Thursday that Iran and 6 world powers just finished 3 very productive days of talks in Vienna that identified the issues to be addressed in a comprehensive agreement. Iranian state media reported Thursday the 2 sides agreed on a framework for talks on a comprehensive nuclear deal. Western countries have accused Iran of trying to develop nuclear weapons, something it denies. Tehran insists that its nuclear program is for peaceful purposes only. And researchers in Denmark suggest more than a quarter of first-time miscarriages could be prevented by making a combination of lifestyle changes. Researchers said lifting more than 20 kilograms each day during pregnancy and being obese or underweight increase the risk of miscarriage. They said women beyond their early 30s who drank alcohol and worked night shifts during pregnancy were also more likely to miscarry. Researchers at the University of Copenhagen, which carried out the work, said only by reducing all of the risk factors could they be prevented.
So self-important. Said I'd see you soon, but that was oh maybe a year ago. Didn't know time was of the essence.
Now, Ghana's sensational musicians Efia and Fuse ODG have been shortlisted for the 2014 World Music Awards, which will be held on May 27 at Monte Carlo Sports and Club.
Let's go, let's go. The Afro-pop singer Efia and Fuse ODG are competing in the Best Female and Best Male Artist categories respectively. With the World Music Awards, there is no jury involved, and the awards truly reflect the most popular artists as they are determined by the actual fans that vote and buy the records. They both face state competition from the likes of the band, Two-Face, Tiwa Savage, Wizkid, Yanya and Banky W, all from sister West African country, Nigeria. To help bring both awards to Ghana, Ghanaians are encouraged to vote for Efia and Fuse ODG. Showbiz, however, wishes them all the best.
Should I do me by but should I spend my money
Always in a rush, never stay on the phone long enough. Why am I so self-important? Said I'd see you soon, but that was oh maybe a year ago. Didn't know time was of the essence. So many questions, but I'm talking to myself. I know that you can't hear me anymore, not anymore. So much to tell you, and most of all goodbye, but I know that you can't hear me.
A quick reminder of our headlines for the Zar. Residents in parts of Accra still travel long distances and queue to access potable water. Meanwhile, Minister of Water Resources, Works and Housing assures by evening, persons in the western parts of Accra would have water. Bank of Ghana is hopeful the cedi will start stabilizing against the United States dollar from March 2014. Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan suspends Central Bank of Nigeria Governor Lamidu Sanusi after his accusations of missing oil revenue sparked public outcry and criticism against the government. UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Navi Pillay says deadly sectarian violence in the CAR appears to be getting worse. Totally grateful for your company. There's more news on myjournal9.com. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Kimini Nyamani. I'm out. Goodbye.